Imagine a weapon so powerful it could melt entire armies from space, all with the light of our sun. What if, during World War II, Nazi Germany had worked on building such a super weapon capable of turning the favors of the war in a singular shoot? This is the story of the Nazi Sun Gun, a weapon so ambitious it sounds like a work of science fiction rather than reality. But was this weapon really this far-fetched? During the horrors of World War II, Nazi scientists were developing a row of so-called Wunderwaffen, or in English, miracle weapons, that the Nazis wanted to use to secure Germany's dominance in World War II. While some of the miracle weapons became reality, like the V-2 rocket, others never moved away from drawings on a sheet of paper. The Sun Gu was one of these projects, but it wasn't entirely based on science fiction. It was based on actually science, but with some serious limitations. Today, we're diving into one of the weirdest weapons of the Wunderwaffen program and its use and creation. Could this sun gun have really existed? And if yes, could it have altered the course of history? Or was it just another outlandish attempt by some Nazi lunatic scientists that didn't get enough sleep? Stay tuned, because in this video we will explore the origins of the sun gun, the science behind it, and the reason it never materialized. But before we dig into this mystery, here is a question to keep in mind. How could this have altered your life? So watch till the end, and the answer might surprise you. To fully understand the German sun gun, we first need to understand the Wonder Weapon program. The Schutzes Wunderwaffe program was used by the Nazi regime to describe a row of highly ambitious and often futuristic weapons designed to change the course of the Second World War towards the Nazis' favor. As Nazi Germany suffered heavy losses on both fronts, Hitler and high-ranking Nazis like Himmler and Goebbels sought a technological advantage, hoping that these super weapons can shift the tide of the war. This obsession with advanced technology wasn't born from nothing. By 1943, the war wasn't really going in Germany's favor. Their tactics, like the Blitzkrieg tactic, which had been incredibly successful against countries like Poland and France, were starting to lose more and more against the better equipped and organized Allied forces. The Soviet army was pushing the Nazis back in the east, while American and British forces were overrolling the Nazis in the west. Hitler, knowing that he couldn't win anymore, placed a giant amount of faith into these super weapons. The Nazis poured a lot of resources into the Wunderwaffe program. Driven by SS General Hans Kammler and other Nazi generals, these projects varied in size and achievability. Among the working wonder weapons was, for example, the V-2 rocket, which was the world's first long-range ballistic missile. That was mainly used to attack and bombard Great Britain. They were launched at targets like London, gripping the civilians with great fear and demonstrating Germany's supposed technological superiority. But the Wonder Weapon program wasn't just limited to rockets and sun guns. Fighter jets like the Messerschmitt Me-262, the first working high-speed fighter jet, was also developed under the Wunderwaffe program. Other projects included stealth bombers, massive artillery weapons, massive tanks, and even more exotic stuff like a particle beam weapon and a UFO that functioned as a time machine. Some of these projects were produced and others landed in the trash because of their ridiculousness, combined with low morale and extreme resource shortages at the end of the war, caused many promising projects to never go into production. The Wonder Weapons were not just physical weapons, but some of the Wunderwaffe weapons were psychological weapons. German propaganda showed these miracle devices as proof that Germany could turn the tide of the war and win. In some sense, the Wunderwaffe became the last-ditch effort of the Nazis to turn around the war and not be left in rubbles. A lot of Hitler's speeches emphasized that Germany would win these miracle weapons, having a lot of hope that Wonder Weapons would fully turn the tide of the war. While some of these projects, like the V-2 rocket, did give Germany an edge over its enemies, they were at the end too little to have a big impact on the war. By the time some of these weapons were ready for production, over 95% of Germany's industrial complexes had been fully destroyed or captured by Allied forces, making it impossible to even produce a single one of these weapons. Despite this, the Nazi leadership continued to hope that these wonder weapons would shift the war even though they couldn't even be produced. This is the time in which the sun gun was ready to be built, a project so idiotic and so bold that it might have just been the weapon they needed. Also, the sun gun wasn't simply a bad dream. It would have required hundreds of millions of tons of material that the Nazis defiantly didn't have access to during the war. Secondly, constructing such a massive object and sending it into space was at the time simply impossible. Looking at the rockets they had during WW2, they would have needed about 180,000 V-2 rockets to send this monstrosity to space, which they clearly couldn't have produced in a reasonable time frame. Thirdly, the logistics of controlling a weapon that big in outer space were staggering. They would have needed multiple supercomputers. Also, how would they prevent the mirror from overheating or even melting if so much sunlight is hitting it? These were just some of the problems the Nazis faces while working on this Wunderwaffe project. Nevertheless, the Nazis at risk, far beyond the reach of any modern defenses. Without the necessity for protracted conventional warfare, the Nazis might have defeated the Allies by using the sun gun to attack vital infrastructure, military outposts, or civilian targets. A single catastrophic attack may have drastically altered the war's course overnight, but past its peak military deployments, the sun weapon may have had far-reaching geopolitical suggestions. On the off chance that the Nazis had been able to preserve control of such a weapon post-war, it would have cemented their position as an overwhelming worldwide controller. No nation would have been able to challenge their ambitions without confronting the risk of atomic destruction. The Cold War might have looked exceptionally diverse, with Germany, now the joined-together states of Soviet Union, at the rudder of a unused world range. In any case, indeed in the event that the sun weapon had been completed, its long-term victory would have been far away from ensured. Other countries, especially the joined-together states in the Soviet Union, would have without a doubt sought after countermeasures, counting progressed anti-satellite weapons or their own space-based superweapons. Much just like the atomic arms race that taken after World War II, the unused solar arms race focused on space could have developed disastrous results. The Nazi sun gun, despite never reaching completion, has left an enduring legacy that continues to resonate. In the aftermath of World War II, the notion of a weapon capable of harnessing solar energy from space captured the imagination of scientists, engineers, and filmmakers. The sun gun became emblematic of the Nazis' unyielding quest for superweapons and highlighted the transformative potential of space-based technology and warfare. In the realm of science fiction, the concept of a death ray or solar-powered weapon has frequently surfaced in various media, including films, literature, and television. The origins of doomsday devices, space lasers, and satellites designed for global annihilation can be traced back to the sun gun. Movies such as Goldfinger and Star Wars have popularized the idea of superweapons and destruction while themes involving space weapons and solar weapons.
Total war patterned by the Nazis for all Europe comes at last to Germany.
In many ways,
This is the
Sun
frontier
Gun
town of
serves as an
Aachen,
early
the first to
representation
fall
of
under the
ultimate
full
weapon
weight of
of
Allied
mass
military might.
age audiences.
Because the Nazi commander
Beyond the realm
built
of
refused
fiction,
to
the
surrender,
theoretical
the city was
foundations of
bombed
Sun
and
Gun
shelled for
have
12
not been
days
entirely
before the American First Army
Hermann
took the
Oberth,
town.
a pivotal figure in the conception of the area, played a significant role in the field of
Forced
space
to remain by SS troops,
Following the war,
German civilians
numerous
give themselves
Nazi
up to the
scientists,
Allies,
including
seeking
those focused on
safety in the
space
American
research,
line.
were
They
relocated
took the
to
brunt of the
United States
attack
and
in
Soviet
concrete
Union
shelter.
through initiatives like Operation.
Long-range
Their
guns
expertise
found
was
the back
crucial
areas
in
east of the
both
town.
nations into the space race, contributing to rockets, satellites, and initial concepts for space stations. Ideas that are closely associated with the original vision of the Sun. Moreover, the Sun Gun foreshadowed genuine technological progress. In recent years, researchers have investigated the potential of
Moving in,
space-based solar power,
General Hodges' infantry
examining
troops
the
fight in the
viability of
streets
deploying
for a
mirrors
week
or solar
in a
panels
grim house-to-house
to
battle.
capture solar energy and deliver clean,
White flags appear
renewable
outside a
power.
few buildings, but
While
the
these
battle is
initiatives are
fierce
designed
for
to
every
benefit
yard.
humanity rather than inflict harm, the fundamental concepts resonate with those proposed.
Here are the people
In
of the city
conclusion,
which once
the
bore the
Nazi
French
Sun
name
Gun
of
remains a
Aix-la-Chapelle.
fascinating subject
These are ordinary Germans
embodying
whose
both
sons and
historical
husbands carried
significance
war
and
across the face of
speculative
Europe
potential.
to bring
And that was the
disaster
video.
back to
Thank
their
you
own
guys for
doorstep.
watching. And if you